Hello, everybody. Welcome back to my channel, and thank you for joining me for another coffee and crime time. On December 13th, 2020, at the height of the COVID-19 lockdown, 21-year-old Texas State University student Jason Landry left his apartment in San Marcos and started a 160-mile journey to Missouri City. He left by 10:55 p.m., and it should have been an easy drive, one he had taken a handful of times already in order to visit his family for the holidays and school breaks. But oddly enough, Jason didn't make it far, only about 30 miles before something prevented him from continuing on. At around 12:30 in the morning, a volunteer firefighter driving down a long, secluded rural highway outside of Luling, Texas, came upon a crashed and abandoned Nissan Altima and called the police. The vehicle belonged to Jason Landry, but there was no sight of him anywhere in the area, and he hasn't been seen since. We have a lot to talk about today, and this is a very strange case. It reminds me of Daniel Robinson, the 24-year-old man who vanished in Buckeye, Arizona in June of 2021. In that case, Daniel had left a job site in the desert, and a few days later his Jeep was found rolled over on its side in a ravine. But to this day, we still don't know what happened to Daniel Robinson. And just like in Jason Landry's case, Daniel Robinson's father is actively still looking for him, still trying to raise awareness, and still trying to get people out there in the desert searching for Daniel. And Jason Landry's father is doing the same for him. But before we dive into today's video, let's have a word from the sponsor of the video, Bombas. Let's talk about my favorite socks, basically the only socks I've been wearing for a few years now. And when Bombas reached out to partner with me on a video, I was excited because my sock drawer was already dominated by their socks. And when I say dominated, I mean 98% of the socks in my drawer are Bombas socks. I wear them every single day, and that's because they're the only socks I found that are this comfortable. Every Bombas item is thoughtfully designed for comfort. That means socks without annoying toe seams, t-shirts without itchy tags, and underwear with minimized seams for all-day comfort. And I have a bunch of Bombas t-shirts and underwear as well. I have the bikinis, I have the boy shorts, I have a bunch of their gray t-shirts, and I love them all. But Bombas socks are what really captured my heart. I love their compression socks because they're perfect for all day or all night wear, and they help me in so many ways. I like the tighter feel. The gradient medium compression is great for working at your desk all day or if you're traveling by plane or car a lot. And I love that they're the cutest, most non-compression looking compression socks I've ever found. A lot of compression socks, if you've worn them ever, which I have for a while because I like a more tight feel in my socks. I hate loose socks. I hate when you wash socks after a couple times and then they're all loose and baggy on you. But with Bombas, they just don't look like they're medical grade compression socks at all. They come in cute colors, really cute patterns, and all of Bombas socks fit like a dream. Whether you are wearing their compression socks like me, if you have their ankle socks, they have all sorts of socks. And Bombas also gives back. They make the number 1, 2, and 3 most requested items in clothing shelters, which is socks, underwear, and t-shirts. And so for every one item purchased, Bombas donates one item. And over 100 million essential clothing items have been donated across a network of over 3,500 giving partners in all 50 states. And Bombas has something for the whole family, including the cutest little socks for kids. And I speak from experience because my 7-year-old Bella has a drawer full of Bombas socks as well. And she's very sensitive to textures and any harsh materials or seams in her socks. And she has been for a few years. So if Bombas are Bella approved, they will work for the most sensitive and stylish adults and children alike. Right now, you can feel good and do good with Bombas, knowing that your purchase is doing some real good out in the world. And new customers are going to get 20% off their first purchases. Just go to bombas.com/stephanieharlowe and use code stephanieharlowe at checkout for 20% off your first purchase. Once again, that's bombas.com/stephanieharlowe and use code stephanieharlowe at checkout for 20% off your first purchase. There's an E on the end of Stephanie and Harlowe. Thank you so much to Bombas for sponsoring today's video, and let's dive in. It was December 13th, 2020, when Jason Landry packed a book bag and set off for his hometown of Missouri City, Texas, just outside of Houston. He had just completed his finals, and he was looking forward to spending some time with his parents and siblings for the Christmas holiday. But first, he planned on hanging out with friends from high school and playing some video games, a welcome break after a long and isolating semester in COVID lockdown. We're going to go over the timeline of Jason's travels from San Marcos to the isolated area where his car would be found not long after. But I want to talk about the condition that his vehicle was found in and the scene that surrounded it. When a volunteer fireman came upon Jason's Nissan Altima on Salt Flat Road, the lights were still on and the key was still in the ignition. The Caldwell County Sheriff's Office would later say that Jason's Altima was most likely the only vehicle involved in the crash, and the accident had likely been caused from Jason overcorrecting on the gravel road and spinning off the roadway. The rear driver's side corner of the car struck a tree on the east side of the roadway, spinning the front driver's side into another tree and some barbed wire fence. The rear window was completely shattered from the impact. YouTuber JLR Investigates actually went to Salt Flat Road in Luling, Texas, and took some video. So I'm going to play a sped-up clip of this video so that you can see what kind of area we're talking about and what kind of terrain surrounded it. As you can see, it's a very long dirt road. There aren't many homes or residences. Mainly, it's just fields and oil rigs, and that makes sense because Luling was built on oil. According to the Luling Oil Museum, quote, "Once known as the toughest town in Texas, Luling was established in 1874 as the far western stop of the Sunset Branch of the Southern Pacific Railroad. In 1922, Edgar B. Davis brought in Rafael Rios No. 1, which proved to be part of one of the most significant oil fields ever discovered in the Southwest. Almost overnight, Luling was transformed from a railroad town of 500 to an oil town of 5,000. Tents filled every vacant area with roughnecks and their families. Ragtown, as they called it, came with every kind of good and bad, makeshift saloons, restaurants, and even a shooting gallery as entertainment. Work was hard and living even harder, but the dream that unfolded was a microcosm of Texas history. It was a time when a community of farmers and their families responded to the coming of the railroad, only to have their lives changed forever by the discovery of oil." End quote. Today, there are about 9,000 producing oil wells in Caldwell County, and the wells in Luling are mainly privately owned and produce less than 15 barrels a day. Salt Flat Road is very out of the way, and when the sun goes down, the area is completely pitch black. There's no street lights. Since there's no residences really in the area, there's no porch lights, lights from the houses, things like that. So after the volunteer fireman spotted Jason's car, he called 911 at 12:30 a.m.
Yes, ma'am. I can let you know it's Kellen with Southeast. I just come off of 1322 on the Salt Flat Road, and I'm about, I'm going to say 5 or 6 miles off of the highway, and I just come up on a vehicle that's in a ditch, and it appears that it's going to be he hit a fence. There's clothing and shoes all in the roadway.
Okay, did you find the driver?
I have not. I went up and down Salt Flat, and I haven't located him yet, but it appears that he grabbed a backpack or something out of his car, and he's thrown it in the middle of the road along with a cup that smelled like alcohol, and he's stripped out of his clothes wherever he's at, and there's some blood on his clothes.
Oh, okay. Well, I guess we will get a deputy out there because the trooper's still a little ways out.
Alrighty, yeah, because he took out some fence, and his back windshield's not completely out, and it's got severe front and rear damage to it.
Okay.
I don't know where he's at. I've been up and down trying to find him, but I haven't located him yet. Other than that abandoned house that's on here, and I wasn't going to go up there. I figured that'd be a law enforcement issue.
Okay, and it's on Salt Flat, 4 miles north of Pumper?
Yes, ma'am.
Texas Department of Public Safety Trooper Cristobal Flores arrived on the scene. He noticed a backpack and some clothes laying in the road near Jason's car. Leaving the clothes where they were, Flores took the backpack and called a tow truck to have the Nissan Altima moved. And you can see in this body cam footage, Flores is looking through the backpack to find identification, which he does. He finds Jason Landry's identification. He also finds something else of interest.
Is it abandoned?
It's abandoned. Nobody lives there, but I don't know if you saw all his clothes and stuff. But he's completely naked wherever he's at. There's blood on his underwear.
So we got 27.
White male.
Go.
Wouldn't let him have that.
Cool. You want me to have it all or just this?
Yeah.
Okay.
Contacts. Right, college kid.
So it looks like right.
Oh my goodness.
Uh-oh.
Yep.
That's why I didn't want to leave it back.
That or he's a delivery boy.
What Cristobal found was a CVS pill container with several rolled up blunts inside.
It looked like it was a lifeguard. He's got a red whistle on his rearview mirror. It's a wonder he didn't get killed. Because he creamed a tree on the driver's
Where's the
side.
cart? Behind us?
It's back there.
Okay.
Around his den.
I'm not collecting up the clothes, but I'm taking this. Okay. And I'm going to go through the rest of it.
I'm thinking if he's from Missouri City, he's still on foot. You want me to go back and hit Pumper and jump 86? I came off of Spruce. I wanted to come from Luling North. I didn't see nobody, but I never hit the side roads.
I came from
1322. So we met in the middle.
Yeah. Tell you what, the you said there was an abandoned house up there?
Yeah, so that house in
Did
the
you
right
check it
window, and I'm about to check it out, but it has the curtains are open, some don't have curtains, so I was able to see through it. Small house. On the right window, it looks like there's something hanging on a ladder, like a shirt or a jacket.
Uh-huh.
So I'm gonna go back and check it out.
Okay, go check that out.
All right.
That's what I saw. That's why I said,
Yeah.
The police officers are discussing whether or not they should look for the driver of the vehicle, and they mentioned something about seeing a nearby abandoned house with something hanging off of it that looked like an article of clothing. So they do go and check out this house, but they find nothing, and there's body cam footage of this. It's actually kind of creepy because the house is completely abandoned, but as it turns out, Jason wasn't there. Reportedly, Trooper Flores took Jason's backpack and then had the Altima towed. And then he left the scene and did not attempt to locate Jason in the area. At around 2 a.m. in Missouri City, Texas, Jason's parents, Kent and Lisa Landry, got a call from law enforcement telling them that their son's vehicle had been found crashed, but he had not been located. Reportedly, the trooper on the phone told Jason's mother that they were trying to locate him, but they feared he may have been on some kind of substance because narcotics had been found in his backpack. Obviously, I cannot be sure that this was said. We don't have a recording of this call. But as far as we know, the police only found cannabis in Jason's backpack, and I'm pretty sure that cannabis is not considered a narcotic, but I could be wrong. It was for a long time classified alongside drugs like heroin and fentanyl, but in 2018, the World Health Organization performed a review on cannabis and cannabis-related substances, and they advised that certain cannabis-derived medicines had no potential to be abused or cause dependence, and even had some significant health benefits for people suffering from certain conditions. So to my knowledge, unless solid scientific facts have changed, a narcotic is typically a pain medication such as Vicodin or heroin, oxycodone, morphine, etc. They're considered opiates, while cannabis is a cannabinoid. So I don't really know why they would say narcotics, but maybe in this area of Texas, they consider any sort of mind-altering substance to be a narcotic. I'm not sure. Let me know if you kind of have an indication of why they would have called it a narcotic, or if in Texas maybe cannabis is classified as a narcotic. I know it's legal here in New York. It's probably not legal in Texas. The only thing legal in Texas are guns, right? I'm just kidding. For anybody, I love you guys. I love Texas. It's just a joke. Just a joke. Don't come for me. So Jason Landry's father is Kent Landry. He's a former defense attorney turned pastor, if you can imagine two drastically polar opposite jobs. And when they got the call, Kent and his wife Lisa, he immediately got into his car and drove to Luling, Texas. He first went to the impound lot. Since Kent was the registered owner of Jason's Nissan Altima, he was able to go to the impound lot and access Jason's car. And he said the driver's side door was unlocked, and he found Jason's cell phone between the driver's seat and the center console. According to law enforcement, they aren't sure whether the phone ended up there at the time that Jason's cell phone activity went dark, which we're going to talk about in a minute, or when he got into that accident. Kent then proceeded to the scene of the accident. When he arrived on Salt Flat Road, he expected to see what I think we all would expect to see, a police presence of some kind, crime scene tape, police cars with their lights turned on, a barricade of some kind, people searching for his son, maybe CSI text processing stuff. But instead, Kent found himself alone on the side of the road. Now, he could see where the accident had happened, and he could see that a lot of Jason's belongings were still in the road. So according to the police report, Jason's backpack had been found about 900 feet away from the car, but that backpack had already been taken by Cristobal Torres. And then 100 feet further south from where the book bag would have been found, Kent Landry saw Jason's clothes. He saw a t-shirt, shorts, SpongeBob socks, underwear, flip-flops, and a wristwatch.
Shocked when he pulled up.
I've been to plenty of crime scenes, and I was expecting police and searchers, and there was no one.
Landry quickly making a startling discovery.
See, this is his flip-flops.
A pile of his son's clothes.
Socks, shorts.
Some bloody, strewn across the road.
And I could tell that it was Jason's clothes because Jason wears crazy socks, bright yellow SpongeBob, and I knew those socks and I recognized his clothes.
But with temperatures near freezing that night, clothes would have been a lifeline. 3 thoughts flooded the father's mind. Why on earth was his son on this road, so far off the main highway? Where was Jason now, and why was no one looking for him?
You cry when you think of your child walking down this stupid dirt road in the middle of nowhere. I wish I'd never heard of Salt Flat Road.
Landry still finding pieces of his son's car as we walked with him down Salt Flat Road 10 months later.
This is part of his car right here.
Still wondering why law enforcement didn't react more urgently.
It's frustrating because we don't have hard answers.
Captain Jeff Ferry is the lead detective on the case. He admits early on things weren't done perfectly.
There is no inventory conducted. I don't know why. That's a Highway Patrol question. The trooper does not go into the vehicle. I don't know why. That's a Highway Patrol question. The trooper does not place a hold on the vehicle. I don't know why. It's a Highway Patrol question.
And it's those first hours that haunt Kent Landry to this very day.
You know, the thing as a parent, you visualize your child walking down a dirt road in the middle of nowhere, not knowing anyone, looking for help. And that's the part that hurts. Yeah. So that stays with you.
Now, there was a lot of reports, initially especially, that there was blood found in the car, that there was blood found on Jason's clothes. And law enforcement's clarified. They said they just found one single blood smear on the left hip of Jason's shorts, but they do not believe that it was from an injury sustained during the crash since they found no blood in the car. Now, when they say they found no blood in the car, they said we saw no blood in the car. Has Jason's car been processed forensically, right? Has some sort of luminol substance been sprayed to see if there was blood or some other bodily fluid in the car? I'm not sure. We're going to talk about this in a minute. So anyways, the police said, the blood found on Jason's shorts, they believe it could have happened when Jason came into contact with the barbed wire fence after the crash, maybe as he was getting out of the car, and they didn't find any other blood at the scene. So we're going to talk about those first hours after Jason's car was found in a minute and why law enforcement in this case seems to have dropped the ball in the most crucial hours of a missing persons case, which is the first 48 hours. And I mean, especially the first few hours, the first, 2 to 3 hours in this case, because we're going to find out that the police didn't come across Jason's car long after the accident. So after Jason's car was towed to the sheriff's station, they would eventually find inside his laptop, his cell phone, his wallet, and many other personal items, including his betta fish, which apparently Jason brought his betta fish everywhere with him. The Caldwell County Sheriff's Office examined Jason's cell phone, and they were able to piece together a timeline of the days before he went missing based on his search history and some communications. Between December 8th and December 13th of 2020, Jason Landry Googled, "How long can you live in the woods without food?" He also Googled, "How long can you go in the wilderness?" According to Jeff Ferry, who's the captain of the Caldwell County Sheriff's Office, quote, he's looking up some spiritual enlightenment practices. He's looking up different strains of marijuana and how to combine those. He's talking about psychedelics and how they have impacted his life and his perception of spiritual awareness. There are communications with individuals where he talks about his intent of reaching spiritual enlightenment through the use of narcotics. So does that play a factor in his disappearance? We think so. End quote. On December 13th, 2020, before leaving his San Marcos apartment, Jason FaceTimed a friend in Missouri City. Now, according to his father, Kent, Jason and this friend had gone to high school together, but they hadn't been close then. It had only been after high school and during college that the two had formed a bond and they started talking a lot more. According to Jeff Ferry, the sheriff of Caldwell County, the friend had screen recorded the FaceTime conversation because he said that Jason had been so high he didn't think he would remember it later. Now, we do have access to that video, but there's no sound. And although law enforcement has enlisted the help of lip-reading experts, they still can't figure out exactly what Jason is saying. In this video, Jason can be seen smiling, chatting, and rolling several blunts, which would later be found in his backpack on Salt Flat Road. Law enforcement talked to this friend who was on the phone with Jason, and Captain Ferry said that the two had been talking about spiritual awakening and enlightenment, opening the third eye, and drug consumption. Now, the third eye chakra is said to be located in the center of your head, parallel to the middle of your eyebrows, and it is believed to be linked to perception, awareness, and spiritual communication. The third eye is thought to be a window to the spiritual world, a doorway to all things psychic, and it has long been believed that having a drug-induced psychedelic experience can help a person open this third eye. So it would make sense that the conversation between Jason and his buddy might have involved these topics: opening the third eye, enlightenment, drug consumption. This video was also important, though, because it let law enforcement know that the same clothes Jason was wearing in the video were the ones found in the street near his wrecked and abandoned car. So they were able to put two and two together and theorize that after the crash, Jason had walked away from his car, undressing as he went. Jeff Ferry said, quote, about 900 feet away from the collision scene, he puts on his hat, his backpack, continues walking south, and at about 80 feet, maybe 100 feet, that is where he starts taking off his clothes. And clothes are found in a manner which you would, if you were walking and taking your clothes off. And that's the last time there's any known location of Jason, end quote. Now, although we are talking about Texas, it was December, and that night was particularly cold, just about 30 degrees. So why would Jason decide to take his clothes off after a car crash? And why would he decide to just keep walking when he had a working cell phone in his car that he could have used to call for help? Well, when Jason's father, Kent, arrived on the scene near dawn on the morning of December 14th, he walked through with his own cell phone and recorded what was left of his son's belongings.
On highway, what is this, whatever they call this, Salt Flat Road or whatever, on the washboard. And these are Jason's clothes lying in the road. It's hard to see. Those are two pairs of socks, shorts. It's underwear. I'm about, I don't know, 20 feet ahead. You couldn't really see him. This is his flip-flops. And this is his t-shirt. You can see where at least this is where they went. I don't know, these are the track marks, and you can go down here and you can see where the car went off. You can see the wheels and hit down here by this tree and fence. And Jason walked this way towards Luling or whoever. God, please be with him. This is where I found Jason's stuff. Right there, right where those rocks in the road are, about 30 feet. This is his toiletry bag for when he came home with his toothpaste and shaving cream, and that's his drink cup. And the car ran off the road right around this curve. You can see that where you go in, that's an oil field thing, and then right around that curve, about 50 feet past that, you can see where it ran off the road. So this is, I don't think 200, I don't think it's maybe a football field, maybe a little bit more, where I found his clothes lying in the road. be with him.
The Caldwell County Sheriff's Office tracked Jason's whereabouts from data gathered from apps on his phone that he was using at the time, including the Waze app and Snapchat. If anybody doesn't know what the Waze app is kind of like Google Maps, like a navigation application, but it also tells you about real-time traffic alerts. Basically, it tells you if there's an accident ahead. It tells you, even sometimes it tells you if there's like police parked. I think you can interactively use the app where if you're driving on like a highway and you see, a police officer hiding in the bushes, you can actually make note of that in the app so that anybody behind you will also get a notification of that through their Waze app. I've only used it a couple of times, but as far as I know, that is one of the features. But what we need to know for the purposes of this video is it is a navigation app, so it's going to be tracking Jason's location. And he was also using the Snapchat at times during his drive. So after Jason left his apartment at around 10:55 p.m., his cell phone traveled down Highway 80, passing under the I-35 overpass in San Marcos around 11:05 p.m. 2 minutes later, he entered Caldwell County, heading south on Highway 80. Between 11:17 and 11:21 p.m., Jason passed through Fentress, Prairie Lea, and Stairtown, and at 11:24 p.m., he entered Luling, still on Highway 80. Now, as he drove through the intersection at Hackberry Street, where Highway 80 turns into Austin Street, Jason's digital footprint went dark. And then an hour later, his car was found crashed and abandoned. So whatever happened to Jason went down within an hour's time. And if someone had started looking for him as soon as his car was spotted, he may have still been in the area, within earshot, if people were out looking and calling his name. Now, at that point, we had very cold temperatures, and a person who may have been under the influence of something, wandering around in the wilderness without any clothes or shoes on, it definitely should have been a matter of the utmost importance. But it seems that initially law enforcement wrote Jason off as a kid who was drinking or doing drugs, a stupid college kid. He'd gotten into an accident, and then he left the scene because he didn't want to be in trouble for being under the influence and driving. Now, had the responding officer looked in Jason's car before having it towed, he would have realized that Jason had left behind everything he might have needed to get back to civilization, such as his phone and his wallet. But that didn't happen, and Kent Landry, Jason's father, he's not very happy about it.
But I think at a certain point in investigations, you have to ask, okay, what I thought happened may not be true. Let me look at other possibilities. And the frustrating thing for anybody who knows about Jason's case is, unfortunately, I think law enforcement has done that from the very beginning, from the very first highway patrolman. And you've all watched the body cam footage where he says to another law enforcement officer, I think this was a drunk college student who wrecked his car. And for whatever reason, he had the opinion that drunk college kid wrecked his car, called a buddy, and is probably sitting at home. Well, they had already sent law enforcement officers to check, is Jason sitting at his apartment, or anyone that we know of, within relatively hours of his car being found. So when did Highway Patrol ever say, well, it wasn't a drunk college kid who just wrecked his car and got a ride home with his buddy? And the frustrating thing is they found his clothes, right then. I found his clothes, but they saw his clothes laying there in the middle of the road. They didn't even bother to pick it up. They didn't even bother to move it. But they saw his clothes there. And so if you literally think there is some college student naked in 30-degree weather with 20-degree knot winds, shouldn't you at least search for him? Shouldn't you get out of your car? But he just rode along his car, shining his light on the road. And that lackadaisical, indifferent attitude towards the suffering of people, for there's someone out there that needs to be found and helped, even if they are incapacitated, even if they're stoned or drunk or whatever. Part of law enforcement's job is to help those who can't help themselves. And that's the part that is frustrating from the very beginning, that law enforcement has treated this case with indifference, arrogance, frankly, maliciousness towards Jason and who he is. And that hurts. That is beyond frustrating. To be sitting here talking still about my son 721 days later.
So we can objectively admit that the police did not handle this investigation very well in the first hours, and this is most likely due to a scenario we've personally seen on this channel many times before. Law enforcement sometimes has a tendency to use cognitive shortcuts, assuming that the situation looks like one thing and then proceeding based on that theory instead of investigating to see if there's other possibilities. Remember, we covered the case of Misty Copsey, a teenager who vanished from the Puyallup Fair in 1992. And police handled her disappearance as if she was a runaway from the very start. We see this a lot with victims who are of adult age. I mean, Misty wasn't, but we see this a lot now with missing people who are 18 or older. When they go missing, we hear the party line from law enforcement. These people are adults. They might want to be missing. They might not want to be found. And that's their right. But if we look at the timeline, with Jason passing through that intersection at East Austin and Magnolia Ave at 11:30 p.m. and his car being found just an hour later, it was a very short period that he'd been missing, an hour, even less. And the fact that the key was in the ignition, the lights were on, I mean, it should have told law enforcement that he hadn't been gone long. I mean, he hadn't been gone long enough for, the battery to die. They could have started looking for him then, at least gone out into the dark with some flashlights, maybe thrown off some flares, yelled his name once they had his identification, which was the minute they were on the scene. Cristobal Flores had Jason's investigation. They could have set off some flares. They could have gotten some floodlights in there. They could have yelled his name. They could have done something. So Jason goes through that intersection in Caldwell County. A minute later, his digital footprint went dark, but it's believed that he continued driving on East Austin and then onto Spruce Avenue, which turns into Salt Flat Road. From that intersection that Jason passed through to Salt Flat Road, it's only a 3-mile drive, which would have taken him roughly 8 minutes. And considering that his destination was Missouri City, there's actually no reason why Jason would have gone the way he did to Salt Flat Road. He should have kept driving on East Austin to I-10. Now, what would be the reason for Jason to venture off the beaten path, even though he was using the Waze app for navigation? Why would he head to an isolated area that, as far as we know, he'd never been to before? If what his friend who FaceTimed with him earlier stated was true, and Jason was very high during their FaceTime call when Jason was still at his apartment, maybe he just wasn't paying attention. It has also been reported that at the time Jason was passing through the intersection, he received a Snapchat. And police know that he looked at the Snapchat because that app was opened and then the Waze app was put into the background. So he may have been distracted by the Snapchat he received or took a wrong turn accidentally. At this time, we don't know who sent the Snapchat or what it was. I wonder if the police know, because you know how Snapchats are, they disappear. Maybe Jason was heading to Salt Flat Road intentionally. We just don't know. But according to Jeff Ferry, who's the captain of the Caldwell County Sheriff's Office, he doesn't believe something nefarious happened to Jason. But if something nefarious did happen to Jason, Ferry feels it went down after the crash, not before or during. Ferry says that there is no connection between Jason Landry and Luling, Texas. He said, quote, he's leaving Texas State and he's going to Missouri City, which is by Houston, a source city for narcotics. Literally just happens to be on the way there. Jason didn't know anybody in Luling. He's not talking to anybody in Luling. There's no Luling connection, end quote. I think that law enforcement has made their position and their opinion on Jason Landry clear. He was a college kid involved with drugs. He got in a car crash, wandered off, got lost in the wilderness. Now, Jason's parents do not like the way their son has been portrayed. They don't know why law enforcement felt it was necessary to release Jason's Google searches and conversations, which paint him as an irresponsible, drug-addled college kid. And they believe that this mischaracterization of Jason, it might cause people to not look for him, to not feel he's in danger, or to victim blame and feel that since he had done this to himself, he was to blame and he's on his own. And I don't disagree, because even in that last statement from Jeff Ferry, where he says that Jason was on his way to Missouri City, which is near Houston, which is a narcotics hub, it seems to be making some sweeping assumptions. Does Jeff Ferry know that Jason was going to Houston to get drugs? Was there something in Jason's phone that indicated this? If yes, then tell us. You told us all about his Google searches and his psychedelic, journey to open his third eye. So if there's something in his phone where Jason was saying, hey, I'm meeting up with somebody in Houston to buy narcotics, tell us. Or is it simply a theory that isn't really being purported as a theory? It's kind of being delivered to the public as in this is what happened.
From the very beginning, that law enforcement has treated this case with indifference, arrogance, frankly, maliciousness towards Jason and who he is. And that hurts. That is beyond frustrating. For whatever reason, frankly, I think, and I by no means think all, because some of the people I've met in government and the district attorney in Caldwell County have been really caring about Jason. But for whatever reason, I think there certainly are many in Caldwell County in government or whatever that wish they'd never heard the name Jason Landry. And so for whatever reason, they choose to maybe just stick their head in the sand and hope it all goes away, and that eventually this crazy family will, and that's the that's the hard part about it. Anybody, as a parent, we're never going to go away. We're never going to stop looking for our child, because that's our child. I mean, any parent would do the exact same thing that we are doing, is we're not going to give up. We're not going to keep praying, we're not going to keep looking, and we're not going to quit hoping until we know the truth and our child comes home, whatever that might look like. The arrogance of just simply saying it's no crime to run away and go missing. That's not what we're talking about. There's no indication, in spite of the smear job that Caldwell County Sheriff's Office did on Jason, that you could reasonably say Jason just ran away to start a new life. Why? His life was good as it could be for a college student in the midst of COVID. I mean, he's just not the type to run away, and no one would run away without their wallet and their ID and their money and their clothes. That just doesn't make sense. So did someone do something to him? And that's the question of that 1 hour and 2 miles. And 2 years later, we're still asking, and that's the frustrating thing, is we're still asking the same questions, and we're not getting any answers.
Captain Jeff Ferry has also made claims that Jason Landry wasn't even going home for Christmas. His family didn't even know that he was going to be in town, that Jason was heading to his buddy's house to play video games and get high. Kent Landry does not understand why the sheriff's office would release so much evidence, all of which has put Jason in a bad light. And he said, quote, "If any individual, myself included, you or anyone else in the government felt it was appropriate to release our weirdest searches that we ever Googled in recent time, what would that look like for each of us? It would probably look pretty odd. So that would be my question. Why would you do that? That's not indicative of our general character or behavior, and I'm not sure what the purpose of it would be outside of casting aspersions about someone's character. And then you're talking about character assassination, and then that would make us very angry." End quote. Damn, Kent Landry, go off. He completely read these people for filth with the most extensive vocabulary ever. I will also note once again that I think it was pretty messed up for Jeff Ferry to make that statement about Houston being a narcotics hub in relation to Jason's case, because in 2022, the Attorney General's office released a statement which in part read, quote, "Nothing has been found on Mr. Landry's social media, cell phone, or other electronic devices to suggest that he knew or was planning to meet anyone in Luling, including the lack of credible information pertaining to the purchase or sale of narcotics," end quote. So shush yourself, Jeff Ferry, with your judgy judgment and your smug theories. Whether or not Jason Landry was planning to buy a whole dump truck's worth of narcotics in Houston, it doesn't mean he's any less valuable as a person or in any less danger when he went missing. So let's talk about the search efforts for Jason Landry, which, once they got underway, were quite extensive. The area around Jason's crashed car was searched with Department of Public Safety helicopters and drones totaling about 16,900 acres within the first week and a half. And Texas Search and Rescue covered 3,900 acres by foot and on horseback with police and scent dogs. On December 18th, the Department of Public Safety turned the case over to the Caldwell County Sheriff's Office. Texas EquuSearch was also involved, but on December 22nd, they announced their decision to pull out of the search, saying, quote, "Over the last 9 days, law enforcement investigators and 2 different search teams have searched for Jason Landry in every accessible, reasonable, and practical place that he might be. We will not speculate on what may have happened to Jason, but we feel the vast area surrounding the accident scene has been thoroughly searched, and Jason still hasn't been found," end quote. Texas EquuSearch said they were suspending their search efforts until law enforcement had more information, but Texas Search and Rescue continued their efforts. On February 26th, they began a 3-day search with more than 100 people.
Out here where the crash happened, you can take a look and see there are still tire marks leading all the way over here to this tree that Jason hit. Now, the question that everyone is still asking is what happened after that? Several agencies and even locals like Stuart Carter have been looking for Jason.
It's thousands of acres, and today I'm searching close to the roads as possible.
Do you have any idea where he might be out here?
I think he's trying to go, he's heading for help, and he might have lost energy.
We're still concentrating on some areas such as the creeks and the water, but right now we still haven't found him.
Sergeant Dion Cockrell with the Texas Department of Safety says they are being thorough.
Video, cameras, whatever we can use to scour the area.
As Jason's family waits, his dad has a message for his son.
We just want you home. Nothing else. Nothing else matters. I love you, son.
On Monday, a search began near Salt Flat Road, which parallels Highway 86. Today, a wider search conducted, much of it around a large oil field that dates back to the 1920s. It's a place where someone could easily get lost, according to Felix Cortines, who has a deer lease nearby.
A lot of old wells, saltwater disposals, just old wells that were never even capped or cemented, just holes. A lot of creeks, a lot of steep banks.
He was here on this road. I don't know if he was trying to avoid a deer or what, and swerved and hit some trees on the side.
Dogs tracked a scent indicating Jason was walking back toward Luling, but after about a quarter of a mile, the trail disappeared.
Rural floodplain has been grid searched more than half a dozen times by searchers wearing GPS trackers and using drones to comb through thousands of bones, identifying points of interest.
We have to now go through and determine, hey, is this a critter bone, is this a cow, or is it human? And so we were able to get most of those objects identified with no evidentiary findings.
The area is also dotted with oil tanks.
And there really is no good way for us to search those. We'd have to vacuum pump every one of them, and that could take years. So we're not done looking. I still think he's out there. We just missed him.
Abel Pena disagrees. The retired FBI agent now runs Project Absentia, a nonprofit that helps locate missing people. He thinks something more nefarious happened.
We've gone back and looked at some of the early data and spoken to some of the early witnesses and have discovered some anomalies.
Jennifer Young is a Kansas mother who says she's followed Jason's case for the past year.
I pray for them every single day because this is a parent's worst nightmare.
She started a petition for a Geofence warrant, which would help investigators better pinpoint who was in the area when Jason vanished.
And it's extremely frustrating that we have the technology available to us, and it's just going by the wayside.
Monday, more than 12,000 people had signed. Still, Ferry says it's not something his office can get, as there has to be evidence of a crime for a judge to sign off.
This would be infinitely easier if we had a bad guy to look at or go in the direction of. There's just not.
Okay, So there's a few things from this clip I want to talk about. When scent dogs were brought in, they did track Jason about a quarter mile down the road, heading in the direction of Lulling before they lost his scent. In October of 2021, volunteers with Texas Search and Rescue used AI in order to create computer mapping programs to show them where Jason could be. So a pond and part of a river near the crash scene were drained, and dogs potentially picked up on Jason's scent there, but he still wasn't found. At this point, it seems that the Caldwell County Sheriff's Office and Jason's parents can agree on one thing. They do not believe that Jason is alive any longer. Captain Jeff Ferry said, quote, "When we look at the totality of things, it really paints a picture on an almost internal crisis that Jason is dealing with. I do believe the most likely scenario is that Jason is deceased and he is just out there and we have not located his remains yet. We have to go in the direction the evidence takes us, whether we like it or not. And in this instance, no doubt this is a tragedy, but it's not a crime," end quote.
A year later, Ferry believes Jason, who would have had to traverse the terrain barefoot and naked, possibly under the influence, is still in the area.
I think it's most likely that Jason expired out there and that animals got to his remains.
Now Ferry's focus is on feral hogs.
If a feral hog consumes a human and digests a human, will a cadaver dog alert on that scat?
I know it kind of sounds like they said feral hawks, but they said feral hogs. I don't know which would be worse, feral hawks or feral hogs. If you've got both, you're in a lot of trouble, okay?
Ferry's trying to set up a study with the Forensic Anthropology Research Center, a human body decomposition facility at Jason's school.
But there's steps we need to take before we get to the cadaver, right? There's things we should know that we don't have to use a human body for to determine.
And Ferry's questions aren't just limited to feral hogs. In the early days of the search, cadaver dogs alerted on a body of water.
River otters will eat meat. They also will spread a body or spread a food source, right? They'll take their food and go. Is that what cadaver dogs were hitting on early in the search?
We also heard from Abel Pena, a retired FBI agent in that clip, and he runs Project Absentis, and he's actually convinced that Jason was the victim of a crime. Pena said, quote, "I think the biggest red flags for us initially were the clothes just being laid where they were placed. The more we examined it, the more we ran it by some of our team, we all agreed that it appeared like it was staged," end quote. Although the Caldwell County Sheriff's Office has insisted that Jason was alone in the car when he crashed, Pena is not sure and feels there could have been someone else in the car with Jason, or he could have been forced off the road. When Jason's cell phone pinged near the intersection of Magnolia Avenue and Austin Street, but then all activity stopped, Pena actually looked into that specific area, he and his team did, and he said, quote, "This area is just a busy one. There is drug activity that takes place behind here, and we have discovered this criminal element that is in the area," end quote. Although he understands how hard police work can be, Abel Pena still feels the Caldwell County Sheriff's Office dropped the ball, and he said, quote, "There's a lot of college kids that smoke, that get high. I don't believe he was high enough that he would have gone into any kind of episode where he would have removed his clothes, especially in the conditions. It was very cold that night," end quote. And that is very interesting because a lot of people have mentioned that due to the low temperatures that evening, Jason may have been suffering from hypothermia, which is the reason he got undressed. We've talked about this in other cases before. Paradoxical undressing is something that happens as hypothermia kicks in and the person suffering from it suddenly feels very hot and removes their clothing to cool down. Like I said, it was about 30 degrees that night in Lulling, Texas. Quite cold for the area, admittedly, but as we talked about earlier, there was only at the most an hour between when Jason passed through that intersection and when his car was found. And hypothermia is caused by prolonged exposure to very cold temperatures. It only happens when the body is losing more heat than it can produce. Besides the fact that there really wasn't a long enough period of time for Jason to start experiencing the advanced effects of hypothermia, his car was found running with the engine on, which means he could have just stayed in his car, stayed warm, called for help using his cell phone. Now, here's more from Abel Pena and his stance on what may have happened to missing Jason Landry.
The sheriff's department believes that Jason overcorrected on the road, hit a tree, left his vehicle, then took his clothes off, and then disappeared. You have a different theory. What do you think happened?
Yeah, Marty, thank you for having me on. We've conducted numerous interviews. We've received a lot of tips. We have an analyst that has a kind of a better understanding of what could have happened to Jason. We've got a lot of tips. We've put it all together. We're hopeful that as we continue to interview more and more people, that we will actually come to know what happened to Jason. At this point, I think it would be a little premature to comment any further about what we believe happened. I will say that we do not believe that he was alone. We believe that there could have been a second or third party involved.
I understand you conducted another search this week. Can you reveal to us if that led you to any more clues that you didn't have before?
We were out there earlier this week conducting a search. We had a dog as well as a drone. It led to additional information. It was negative in the sense that we didn't get any evidentiary of value out there. There was nothing of evidence that we collected. Again, it's just another area that we went out there to take a look at and just to vet it out to make sure that he was not there.
Mm-hmm. I had spoken with Jason's dad in one of our previous stories as we've covered this case, and it concerned him that there weren't more police officers, authorities out there initially after Jason's car was discovered. I've been reading some of your comments as well, critical of the investigation early on. What more do you think could have been done in those early hours and early weeks of this disappearance?
Well, I think the trooper who arrived on the scene could have done a better job. I think the evidence that was collected, the little evidence that he collected, is really unacceptable. To have a father go back out there that following morning, it's heart-wrenching that he's out there by himself collecting all the clothes, and that should have been something that law enforcement should have collected. The vehicle itself was something that should have been preserved. They should have collected. There's exterior as well as interior evidence that could have been collected. They could have combed for hairs and fibers. They could have probably done a better job. However, we were told that the troopers, GPS, I believe, along with the Texas Rangers, did process the vehicle. I don't have any information as to how in depth they did that, but there are ways to preserve a vehicle, and the way they did it by just having it towed that way that night was unacceptable. It should have gotten preserved. There should have been evidence tape around there, and nobody should have tampered with that vehicle. There's plenty of evidence. They could have collected DNA, hairs and fibers, obviously fingerprints, any kind of blood. That vehicle is no longer, it's still sitting out there at a car lot. It's no longer available to be processed at all.
Abel, you have said that the next 30 days are critical. You're optimistic you're going to get some answers. What makes you so confident you'll be able to crack this case?
Well, we have a lot of people that we've talked to. We feel very confident that in the course of the next 30 days that we're going to be coming to at least an idea that, at least to find out what happened to him. I think we're fairly close. I think we're narrowing down the list of people that we need to talk to. We have plenty of work to do ahead. We have a number of other witnesses or people we want to talk to. We received, again, a number of tips on our anonymous tip line.
Now let's talk about something else we've heard about in a few clips, a geofence warrant. We heard Captain Jeff Ferry say that there wasn't enough to get a warrant for this kind of thing, and I'm going to let Abel Pena quickly explain to you what a geofence warrant is, even though he's calling it a tower dump. It's the same thing, and why police had not been able to secure one at that point in time.
I think something like what we call a tower dump would be extremely beneficial. And what that essentially is it provides a trove of information about the cell phones active in that particular area. That's where the mobile towers are at. That's where they're located. That information can be used to identify, a given individual that was out there, perhaps witnesses, the exact time. And it's a technique used to help solve crimes and establishes the location of the suspects and so forth.
Mm-hmm. Abel, I know that you had met with the detectives working this case. You'd asked for this tower dump. Have they been receptive to that request? What's the status?
Well, we met with the DA and the Sheriff's Department, the Caldwell County Sheriff's Department. it didn't, we didn't get too far. There has to be a crime. At least there has to be, at least they have to articulate in the search warrant that there is a crime. If there's no crime, then they're not going to support a tower dump. We believe with all the circumstantial evidence that we've collected in the course of almost the year that we've been involved in this, that there is a lot of circumstantial evidence that we can put together in the hopes of putting together a search warrant, an affidavit for the tower dump.
Now, it appears that a tower dump or a geofence warrant was eventually done, according to the Attorney General's office. In February of 2022, the Caldwell County DA's office and the Sheriff's office requested that the Attorney General's Cold Case and Missing Persons Unit investigate Jason Landry's disappearance. Now, their findings in part state, quote, "Since then, the OAG's Cold Case and Missing Persons Unit has conducted a thorough review of all previously known credible information, interviewed multiple witnesses, consulted with experts in digital forensics and accident reconstruction, and obtained a geofence warrant near the area where Mr. Landry's vehicle was found. Based upon this extensive review and the evidence known at this point, the OAG supports the conclusions previously stated by the Caldwell County Sheriff's Office. Mr. Landry appears to have been involved in a single car accident, and there's no evidence to suggest that another vehicle was involved. The search warrant yielded no activity near the crash site and did not provide any additional information," end quote. Additionally, in July of 2021, the Caldwell County Sheriff's Office, in conjunction with Texas State's Geospatial and Intelligence Investigation Unit, put out a report giving their conclusion on what had happened to Jason Landry. The report stated that Jason Landry had most likely died from natural causes, probably hypothermia, in the hours following his accident. The report mentions paradoxical undressing as the reason Jason removed his clothes and states, quote, "Possible causes include hypothermia, excited delirium from drugs, and or internal bleeding from the accident. Whatever the specific cause, if Landry felt hot, he would not have felt the need to seek shelter inside a house or a building despite the cold temperatures," end quote. So I'm going to read a little bit from this report because it's actually very interesting. So it says that people typically take the path of least resistance, and indicators such as tire tracks, footprints, discarded objects, scuff marks, broken branches, bent grass blades, and crushed plants can help determine their trail. Ground disturbances, changes in soil color, and retarded, advanced, or altered vegetation cover may mark a body burial site, as can bird and scavenger activity. Human remains left in the wilderness will quickly become disarticulated, which means taken apart, and scattered as the result of animal, particularly canid, scavenging, complicating the process of evidence recovery. Research findings in the fields of forensic taphomony, which is the study of death assemblages, and anthropology are of relevance for the problem of finding skeletal evidence and body dump sites. Coyotes in the Pacific Northwest have been known to skeletonize a body in 28 days and disarticulate and scatter most of the skeleton in 2 months. After a year, the bones are dispersed over a large area. The degree of animal movement of human remains is a function of corpse size and decomposition. Position, degree of burial, presence of clothing or wrapping, relative size and strength of the scavenger, season, terrain, topography, and vegetation. Body movement, often indicated by drag marks or disturbed ground cover, occurs in stages between rest places or food caches. These locations may be marked by discoloration from body fluid seepage. Larger animals able to drag an entire human corpse often move it some distance before covering it with debris or burying it in a shallow grave. Heavily gnawed or chewed bones are likely to have been first carried off from the original body location. Skeletal remains are usually found within 100 meters of the primary deposition site, but some pieces may be dragged as far away as 300 meters. Evidence is most likely to be located along animal trails and paths between primary body deposition and other recovery sites, but these trajectories might not be straight because of interim rest sites. Teeth and bone fragments are often found in animal scats. Their analysis can assist in species identification and determination of animal territory and movement pattern. So this report then goes into the case details. It tells what Jason did when he left his apartment. He missed his turnoff and instead drove east out of Luling on Salt Flat Road. The road is not in good shape and eventually turns into gravel. It says at approximately 23:30 p.m., Landry lost control and then overcorrected. His Nissan Altima went off the east side of the road and hit the post of a barbed wire fence. It is unknown if Landry was wearing his seatbelt. The vehicle's airbag did not deploy. There was no blood inside his car, but the possibility of injury cannot be discounted. The vehicle was not not drivable, as one of its wheels was damaged when it struck the fence in the accident. Landry left his mobile phone and his jacket in the car. His backpack containing his wallet with money and credit cards was found on Salt Flat Road, approximately 800 feet south of the accident scene. Landry's clothing, including his watch, underwear, and shoes, were also found on Salt Flat Road, a further 100 feet south. It says during the night of December 13th, the temperature was in the low 40s, very cold for a Texas winter. The apparent temperature was around 30 degrees Fahrenheit due to wind speed and high humidity. The area has a low population density, though sometimes oil workers are present. There are a few buildings and structures nearby, some vacant, others abandoned. Some lights from oil tanks and drilling equipment are visible. Salt Flat Road is gravel at this location but becomes paved closer to Lulling. Most of road here is bordered by barbed wire fences, which will be difficult to climb, particularly for an unclothed person, though not impossible. There are a number of creeks, streams, ponds, and reservoirs in the area. Coyotes and wild boars are present, and the region is a popular hunting spot in the fall. The report goes on to say that in a missing persons case, investigators first need to determine if the party is alive or dead, and if dead, the probable cause could be murder, suicide, accident, or natural causes. In the present case, the evidence suggests Jason Landry died from natural causes, most likely hypothermia, some hours following his car accident. See, this isn't possible. This isn't possible. Some hours following his car accident. How it could possibly be in this report is beyond me because, as I said, from the moment his phone went dark, which he hadn't even gotten to Salt Flat Road yet, to the moment his car was found, 1 hour. Why would he be stripping his clothes off already and suffering from hypothermia already within that 1 hour? Why would he leave his car, which would have protected him from the cold, and taken his clothes off because he's suffering from hypothermia within an hour? It was not some hours later. Why would he take his clothes off and then go and get hypothermia? The clothes, if this report is accurate, because they're saying he took his clothes off because of paradoxical undressing, meant that he took them off because he was having hypothermia symptoms. But it wasn't some hours later. It's not possible. 1 hour this happened. It says for some reason he abandoned his vehicle, leaving behind his jacket and phone. He walked south on Salt Flat Road, back in the direction he had just come from. At a point 800 feet south of his vehicle, dropped his backpack, and then at a point 900 feet south, he removed and left all his clothing, including shoes. It is difficult to walk barefoot on a gravel road. Why would he take his shoes off? Why? This behavior appears to be an example of paradoxical undressing resulting from Landry feeling hot. Once again, I am following. I agree. All things looking as they are, it may have been hypothermia and he took his clothes off because of hypothermia, but not within an hour. The report goes on to say, whatever the specific cause, if Landry felt hot, he would not have felt the need to seek shelter inside a house or a building. Despite the cold temperature, he may have been enticed to enter water to cool down, or may have fallen into a creek or pond because of his drug impairment. It's also possible he eventually engaged in terminal burrowing or hide and lie down syndrome. Most likely he died not far from his clothing recovery site. However, as discussed above, his remains would now be skeletonized, disarticulated, and spread over a large area. Several thorough searches have now been conducted for Landry's remains. The focus of this analysis, therefore, is to identify the most probable unsearched areas by generating optimal residual probability maps. Now, this report also makes some assumptions, and they're called assumptions. I'm not just shading them and saying they're making assumptions. And the report actually says all search efforts involve assumptions, which invalid can undermine the conclusions. The present analysis assumes that Landry died somewhere south of where his clothing was located. The rationale for this assumption is based on the directionality established by the location of the car accident, backpack recovery location, and the clothing recovery location. The volunteer firefighter who discovered the accident came in from the north. Landry drove in from Lulling to the south and knew there were buildings, people where he could ask for assistance, and extensive searching has already been done north of the accident site. If they thought he went south and all evidence pointed to the fact that he went south, why would extensive searching have already been done to the north of the accident site? The next assumption says if a searcher passed within 15 feet of Landry's remains, they would have been detected. However, trees, brush, land depressions, and water can obscure body parts. The multiple searches conducted in this case were all equal in their likelihood of success. However, decomposition and animal scavenging quickly disarticulate human bodies, the remains of which may be distributed over large areas. The later searches, however, even if conducted just as thoroughly as the earlier ones, may have had a lower chance of success because of this disarticulation and movement. Yeah, so basically this just says that they believe Jason had hypothermia, wandered off, died, and then either his body has been, decomposed and is hidden by water or some other natural element, or the animals got to him, took his body apart, and traveled 100 to 300 meters with it. Now, obviously, especially because of the way the investigation was initially conducted, Jason Landry's parents, Kent and Lisa, they're not super willing to accept this statement that, he just died and it was an accident, there's no foul play, and everything is what it is. His family's still waiting for answers, and they're praying someone comes forward with information or that the police can crack what has become a cold case. Kent Landry told Fox News Digital, quote, "They don't even know if he's missing in the sense of a crime or missing and he hasn't been found," end quote. At this point, the Landry family continues to hope for answers. They continue to pray for Jason, and they're encouraging supporters to not only share Jason's missing person flyer, but also share flyers for people who vanished in their own communities. He also gave a piece of advice for parents along with a photo of him dropping his son off as a child at school. And he said, quote, "Make sure that you take time this summer to enjoy the little things with your kids," end quote. Now, anyone with information about Jason Landry or his disappearance can call the Texas Attorney General's office at 512-936-0742 or their anonymous tip line at 726-777-1359. This doesn't seem as straightforward to me as the Clarendon County Sheriff's Office is making it seem. It doesn't seem as straightforward to me as the Attorney General's Office is making it seem. I can go along with everything. I can go along with, maybe he was under the influence of something. Maybe he got in an accident because he was under the influence of something. But why would he leave his car and get undressed, including his shoes, within an hour of the crash? Why wouldn't he wait for someone to drive by? Why wouldn't he call someone on his cell phone? Why wouldn't he do any of those things? Was he that messed up? Was he on something other than marijuana that would have caused him to hallucinate or have delusions? I don't know. It doesn't seem like there's any evidence of that. So without any evidence of that, we have to ask ourselves why within that hour time, Jason didn't call anybody, didn't stay in his car to stay warm, and decided even though he would be walking on a gravel road, even though he would have to climb over a barbed wire fence in order to get from the road to the field and the wilderness beyond, he took his clothes and shoes off. It's far more likely that he started walking and something happened to him at that point. Like maybe somebody picked him up, maybe somebody saw him, maybe somebody accidentally hit him because there's no lights and he was walking on the street, and that's being covered up. I don't know. Let me know what you think in the comments section. I'm looking forward to hearing from you about this. And remember, Jason Landry's family, his parents, Kent and Lisa, are still out there looking for him, hoping. They obviously don't believe he's alive any longer, but they want to know what happened to him, and they deserve that. But before we go, we have to do Stephanie's Small Business Showcase. Woo! And today's Small Business Showcase comes to us from 4 Acre Wood Apothecary. The owner of 4 Acre Wood Apothecary is Natasha, or Tasha. She said, "I want to reach out and introduce myself and my shop. I'm Tasha, and I have an apothecary shop on Etsy, 4 Acre Wood Apothecary. I'm an herbalist and make and sell herbal extracts/tinctures, herb-infused honey, herbal oils, and folk remedies. I also make flower and crystal essences for those who like energy healing or woo-woo. Basically an apothecary of herbal and witchy remedies. I'd love to send you some stuff to try." Absolutely, you can. I love that. She said, "I just have to tell you that your shows are my favorite to listen to, especially when I'm in my shop and packing orders. I love watching your show. You and Derek on Crime Weekly. I loved meeting you all at CrimeCon." Thank you, Tasha. I loved meeting so many of you at CrimeCon. So 4 Acre Wood Apothecary, first of all, super cute branding. Apothecary, the C in apothecary is a crescent moon. Amazing. And it says herbals, essences, enchantment. She's got over 3,000 sales on Etsy. A round of applause for Tasha, and 5-star reviews, so we know it's good. Let's see what she's got here. Elderberry and rosehip infused honey. She's got elderberry and ginger syrup, which is something I would be interested in. I love ginger. Elderberry and ginger together. Powerful, powerful concoction. It says the elderberry syrup was made from fresh organic black elderberries, dried organic ginger, cinnamon, spring water, TXR Weaver's honey, and elderberry vodka tincture for preservation. Elderberries are from my little elder farm. A yummy way to get your elderberry and help soothe the throat. About 24 doses in the bottle. Honey to syrup ratio 1:1. Syrup/honey to vodka 1:4, so 25%. Elderberry is well researched and documented regarding her many supportive actions. Please do your own research regarding herbs and their actions. Yes, elderberry is very, very, very good. So that's amazing. Elderberry and ginger, want some of that. There's also some spearmint leaf-infused honey, which I love. Spearmint is great for so many things, coughs, throat, tummy, and that's exactly what it's for. I know that I use spearmint all the time for my stomach. I hate, if I'm feeling like a little sick, I always get some fresh mint from my lawn and make some tea. This is low in stock, only 4 left, so get that while you can. And she's just got a bunch of stuff. Look at this, Brazilian vervain tincture. So if you happen to come across Stefan or Damon Salvatore, you can just give them some of this, and then they can, grow weakened, and you can tie them up in your house or your bedroom, whatever you prefer. You will understand that joke if you're a Vampire Diaries fan. Fresh bee balm. So she's got a ton of stuff. And this, like I said, the marketing, the branding, super cute. I love the bottles. This looks so good. She's got pages and pages of stuff. Evil eye protection, anointing, ritual oil. Need that. This is amazing. Let's get some of that. That's materials, herbs, almond oil, crystals, Reiki, 1 ounce beautiful and very potent Reiki infused oil for protection, packed with protective herbs, crystals, elixirs, and items that are traditionally used when protecting oneself from the evil eye. Anoint yourself on your pulse points, which is your wrist, your third eye. And it's funny that it's the third eye when we had talked about that in this video. But yeah, beautiful, beautiful bottles. These look great. She's even got some of those like rollerball, it looks like. Maybe a rollerball oils. Are these rollerballs? I think so. Yep, they're rollerballs. I love rollerball oils, by the way. Love them because you can throw them in your purse. You can throw them in your pocket and kind of use them whenever. So she's got a bunch of those too. Check out 4 Acre Wood Apothecary. Tell Tasha that we said hello. Tell her Stephanie Harlowe sent you. And I will link everything in the description box. But until next time, stay kind, stay beautiful, stay safe, and I'll see you very, very soon. Bye.
Straight down, and that river runs deep, the mountains get steep, and the voices getting too loud. All these feelings I've buried, it's looking like a cemetery. They're coming back from the grave, calling out my name, better say a Hail Mary. Well, you don't know how deep it goes until it's killing you slowly. So you got to let it go. I got blood on the strings, blood.